welcome to Moves That Matter. I'm your host, Dr. Clyde Posley, and I'm excited to be back with you again. I appreciate you all paying attention to my message last week, where I reminded you that we will be back with a hot topic and a powerful guest, and we have that in store for you today. These are the times which try men's souls. I am 53 years old, soon to be 54, and I have not experienced this type of a collective atmosphere, a social atmosphere in America. And it is a bittersweet thing. It is painful to watch some of what has had to happen in order for us to get some solvency and some synchronization to the process of eradicating racism. But at the same time, it is exciting, and I am hopeful that we do not allow this to fizzle into a moment, but to crescendo into a real movement. I've heard some people talking about, so when are the protests going to stop, going to slow down? I want to put something in perspective for you. This has been approximately not even quite 1 month. 1 month, and we have people talking about, when is this going to slow down? Let me ask you a question. What is 1 month compared to 400 years as a hostage? 400 years as a slave? There was a movie out, 12 Years a Slave. No, in many ways, and we're going to talk about this economically, socially, psychologically, many African Americans have been 400 years in a legacy of slavery. And so 1 month is nothing compared when you consider trying to turn around 400 years of a dual mindset about one particular issue, which is racism. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. I want to remind you guys about my book, More Than Icons and Images, Uncovering the Hidden Protest Narrative of the Black American Athlete in the 21st Century. And that topic is coming up again. We have NBA athletes who are opting out of the restart relative to this corona season. That's a political issue. And in many instances, it's not just a physical health choice, but it's a political choice because they want to see more done socially before they become entertainers, if you will, again, pacifying the pain of a people who are in a pandemic. And so we're going to be talking about that, but you can order that book on Amazon. You can order it on my website, drclydeposley.com. And you can go to Facebook. You can get in touch with me and order that book. Thank you for all who continue to buy the book, even amid a pandemic and incredible unemployment in our country, some upwards of 16%. So thank you so much for your participation and your viewership. I need you to hit share, because when you hear the topic that I'm going to discuss, and you see the points that we make and the bold courage with which we discuss these topics, you're going to want other people to hear this. And I know I have some critics. Listen, no intelligent, powerful, provocative person is without critics. And so I thank God for the critics, but I also thank them because there's more with me than there are against me when it comes to telling the truth. Because as long as you can't dispel what I'm saying and you can prove that it's not true, I'm not interested in an argument with you. I only am interested in discussions where you can prove that what I'm saying is not true, not just your opinion that you disagree. With that said, we're going to move forward. We're going to get into our discussion topic after this break. You do not want to miss my guest, and you do not want to miss this intellectual discussion that we're going to have about how racism takes place. I will be right back. Hit share and comment while we're having discussion. You don't want to miss this. I'll be right back. Hi, I'm back. Welcome to Moves That Matters. For those of you who are just tuning in, we want you to know that we're excited to have you, and there's one price of admission to my show, and it is that you hit share. And sometimes I go there into bold topics, and some people I can tell are afraid to hit share. You know what? Silence is just as dangerous. Silence is dangerous. Let's just go there. So if you got the courage, hit share today, because we're going to continue to talk about some provocative things. Now, also, before I get into the topic, there's a couple of books I want you all to pay attention to, and I have them with me here today intentionally to make sure that you do. The first one is Chokehold here by Paul Butler. It's a powerful book. It was recommended to me by Pastor Freddie Haynes in a Zoom call that we had. And so it's a powerful book. You want to read this book because it talks more about more than just about physical chokeholds or theoretical impact of the theory of a chokehold, but it talks about how to get involved with state work, local municipalities, and national work to take the steps that actually create the policies or fix the policies that allow for chokehold. Just think for a second. What type of Congress or Senate member would do anything to stop the eradication of the chokehold? Something's wrong with you if you think that a human life should be, it's ever okay to choke out a human life to stop the breath of another person. This is by Paul Butler. And then this next book is a hot book. It is by Ibram X. Kendi, and it is How to Be an Anti-Racist. This is a national bestseller book. It could very well be called the book of the year because of our season. So I want you to consider these two books. I still believe in reading. I know we're in the age of internet, and I recognize that. I still believe in opening a book and actually reading. With that said, I want to get into our discussion today, which is part 2 of a series I started a few weeks ago entitled How Racism Takes Place. And I opened up with the book of Exodus, chapters 1 and 2, where it talks about how racism and the fear of a particular culture started an industry of slavery in general in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, relative to the Hebrews and the Egyptians. But and then I had a guest on, Ms. Nadia Miller, who talked about how racism takes place relative to breast cancer awareness in the African American culture. Today, I want to bring part 2, and I have a guest with me today who I admire. He's a friend of mine, and he's also, his family has a deep legacy in the church where I've been pastoring going on 22 years now. He is brilliant, which is why he's on the show. And I believe in him. But and along with that, he's also provocative and bold and has been called controversial. Can I tell you something? There is no person who speaks forth intelligent truths that does not have detractors. And the number one reason, not the only reason, but the number one reason that most people don't want to hear bold, provocative truths is because they hit them in ways they don't want to be hit. I have this brother here. He is Brother Greg Meriweather. We're delighted to have you here, returning to our show. Yes, we had scheduled a time to come together probably a couple months ago, but our schedules got in the way of him being able to come here. So we're excited to have him here with us today. And he's going to talk with us today about part 2 of how racism takes place and relative to the area of black entrepreneurship, black economic development, or depression, black depression and oppression. And we're going to have some pointed conversation and walk out on some of the branches that root discussion gets us into today. So I'm glad to have you, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Reintroduce yourself to my audience, man, and tell them who you are.
I'm Greg Meriweather, longtime Indianapolis dweller. I am the president and CEO of Greg Meriweather Consulting, which focuses on race relations. Mm-hmm. My experience, I've just recently been the community initiatives liaison for IMPD, mm-hmm. But work a lot in the city and just really try to be an advocate and an activist for people who nonetheless would not have their voices heard.
Absolutely.
So that is my calling, and that's what I attempt to do in everything I do every day.
Right, so, absolutely. Yeah. I don't think that there's any person that knows you. You know, I use this term a lot, Brother Meriweather, that knows me personally. Yeah. I find myself, I humbly say is the more I'm in certain circles, whether it be on the news or in the national, people say, "Oh, I know him." I know. No,
you see me.
You saw me, right? But there's no one so I've been using the term. Anybody that knows me personally. I was about to use that term with you. There's no person I believe who knows you personally who can say that you have done in your adult life anything that is contrary trying to meet the needs of depressed African Americans, socially depressed, and disenfranchised African Americans.
Yeah.
Everything you do, your post on social media, your business, your academic pursuits, all the books that you and I discuss about your reading, all of them have to do with that.
Yep.
And when someone is consistent about what they say, you have to respect that, and I appreciate that. It was one of the reasons I respect you.
I appreciate that.
Listen, man, and so let's get into this discussion.
Sure.
Define for me racism, American racism.
Well, American racism to me, I would look at this from the basis of just economics. I would think that, one of the things that kind of resonates with me with all that's being said and done, we just recently had Juneteenth. Mm-hmm. And, I will be honest, I was not one of
this version's expression of Juneteenth.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was not excited about it because I remember Frederick Douglass saying what the emancipation meant to the black man. It said the emancipation meant that we were open to the rain. We were emancipated to not having a roof over our head. We were emancipated to not having shelter, food. We were emancipated to all these things. He said the black man was basically left destitute with nothing.
Turned out and said, now go figure it out.
Go figure it out in
the
land that you've never been in.
Slavery. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, those people turned around, or if they kept moving forward, then certain laws caused them to become prisoners and slaves again.
Right.
So when I look at just racism, it is truthfully and honestly a power play where people have to be dependent on a system that truly only utilizes them as a tool.
Right. That's a fantastic definition. Along with that, people who support the policies that promote racism, in my mind, are the pillars of racism.
Sure.
If you support people that you know are racist, if you support policies that you know are racist, just to maintain a job, or just to maintain your personal status quo, if there are laws today that say if a person is committing a crime and you do anything to help them do it, you are complicit and guilty of the same crime they are committed. In other words, they couldn't do that crime without your support.
Correct.
And we have a lot of that today. Yeah. And in this age of, quote, talking, let's talk, let's have the conversations.
Right.
Communication is always good, but there are a lot of things that people just don't want to talk about.
I agree. I think that there are a lot of things that people don't want to talk about, and I think that there's this mask or this veil that's being put over the eyes of people. Policies, it's difficult for people to even find out about policies. Just imagine if you don't have computer access or internet access, how do you go and find out what laws are being created?
Right.
I mean, that's in itself, I think, tragic. And then when you think about just how voting goes, how things are put into play, where people don't have the common knowledge of what it is, we have to realize we've not been politically involved for that long.
That's right.
But, for some odd reason, we act like we've been in politics for thousands of years, but really, our actions in politics have not been around that long. For us to even pretend that we're politically
less than about 60 years
Absolutely.
old. 60, if you really want to be honest, 60 years have we really been politically connected.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so when we think about that, it's something to think about, because we should still be leery. We should still be listening. We should still be learning. We should still be really nitpicky as it relates to politics, and not be holding. Because being beholden, when we look at being beholden to certain politics or politicians, we have found that the progress of our people has not been at the level that it should be.
Right.
I've been trained to believe, I can't remember who told me this. They said, but black people are the only people that take either the donkey or the elephant and bring it home with them. They make it a pet. They keep it. They take care of it. They do all these things. They said all the other races of people, they utilize it as a means of transportation. Where an elephant can't get me, maybe a donkey can. But where a donkey can't get me, maybe an elephant can. But it's just a means of transportation.
We internalize and personalize.
Absolutely. And we have to use them as a means of getting to where we're trying to go, and not as this thing that we're beholden to. And I really think that has to change in our world, because then the way we deal with politicians, they'll have to bring us something to the table, because we're looking at you as a means of getting us where we need to be.
You know, that brings me to, a couple things. One is our overall topic today, how racism takes place relative to economics and black development. But I would be interested in hearing your take about, I'm going to give you mine first.
Sure.
Okay. I would be interested in hearing your take about P. Diddy and help me here. Who's the other one? Not Charlemagne the God, and don't audience, don't get upset that I called him that, because the Bible calls us small gods in the Bible. He's not God like the divine theos.
Yes.
So don't get upset. I don't consider. I wouldn't pray to him. But then also Ice Cube now has kind of has reportedly. I haven't researched what's been said about Ice Cube's role in this, but they are talking about. So-called, in their vernacular, holding the black vote hostage personally, until politicians do, give or kind of what you just said, bring something to the table that's more fitting in their mind. I understand the concept. I agree with what you just said. But there's another way I want to bring it up as I toss the ball to you. Ice Cube, P. Diddy, and Charlemagne are individuals who are not going to be economically affected by the choices that they're asking people to make. Their economic in fact, if their thrust is against Biden, if Trump is reelected, they are going to have more money themselves.
Correct.
Because their tax base is going to be enhanced. So they are advocating people with a lower and much lower tax brackets to do something. They really are not hoping. They're not saying that they want Trump to get, but what they're really saying ultimately feeds into their own pockets.
Absolutely.
And so, where is the social responsibility for the people, if we're going to be leaders, that you so advocate for, those who are at the bottom?
Well,
and what are your thoughts? So those are my thoughts about it. What do you think about that as we get into discussion about it?
My thought about it is this. I know that celebrities have always been attractive to us. And you never know, and this is why
for political use, you mean?
Absolutely. Okay. For political use, for anything that you're trying to sell, drive, or whatever to our community, you always go and get them. It happens in more ways than I really choose to talk on. But when I think about, Diddy and Charlemagne and Ice Cube, my challenge to them is, or my challenge to the people is, can you call them? What I've learned about a lot of black celebrities is that there are only a certain group of people who can call them to actually rely on them. So therefore, when I hear them speaking about politics and what we need to do, I've learned that they've done what they've needed to do to get in a bracket that protects them, just as if they were in someone different other than black folk. The other thing that
it's not always the steps we took.
Exactly. Because what you find is most of them fed into the negative narratives, made money off of it, sold, rapped about crack, rapped about drugs, pushed the type of music, and then all of a sudden...
Each one of those people did that.
Absolutely. Exactly. So then all of a sudden you get in a position to where now it's like you want to speak on this political thing, but really you fed into that system.
You use the very thing you're
trying to fight, saying you're fighting against.
Right.
But really it was your catapult.
Exactly.
So for me,
and will be your catapult if you do hold it, and people follow you into holding the black vote hostage.
That's right.
You are going to benefit, and these people, along with several other whites who are in southern states, are going to suffer more because racism hurts white people more than it hurts blacks. Yeah, I wish I had time. I'm going to have to bring you back. I wish I had time, man. But racism costs white people more than it costs black people.
Absolutely.
You know, so I wish I had time to argue
When you look at so many cities, and you look at the city of Indianapolis, the city of Indianapolis will probably have a better growth, make more money, be a bigger city, more probably be toured even more if racism wasn't so strong. Because you're not going to come here and the only culture you see is white culture. So of course it's not a major tourist attraction, because when something does come here and it has and it blends black folk, they create the environment. It's almost like painting the roses. So all of a sudden the Super Bowl came here. All of a sudden you saw buildings, old buildings downtown,
totally
refurbished, turned into nightclubs. It looked like we had black life downtown.
Yeah.
When the All-Star game gets here,
this is
you go
so true.
see the same thing.
This is some of that stuff that people don't want to talk about and don't want to hear. But that is so true. And the evidence is down there right now.
Now.
You know, and in a matter of months, these things happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you'll see a whole nother thing happen. You'll walk down there and be like, man, where'd that come
We're
from?
diverse. And like we're inclusive.
Like we're very inclusive.
It's not that we're not at all, but we're not at that level.
Not at that level.
Yeah.
Because then what happens is black folk will come here and they'll be like, man, I didn't know, man, NAP got it going on, man. They got a lot of things black down there. And we looking like, don't move.
That's
you
powerful.
better not move.
So listen, man, how has racism in black been used as a tool against black development economically?
You know, I always say this to people. You know, why are people so racist towards us? I say because you were brought here as a commodity. You were a tool, and tools were never meant to think, have a say, or grow or develop. They were there for the pleasure of the person who is utilizing them for their own personal gain. And so when we look at this thing, we have to understand that we're still being utilized as tools. We are merely pieces on the board because we've never been the hand that controlled the move. We've never been the people that own the pieces. And so when we look at this thing, we have to understand that it is time for us to have a position in this country that allows us to make certain types of moves autonomously, not without asking anyone. If we started, because, you know, one of the things I think about heavily is Maynard Jackson down in Atlanta when he was a mayor. And they said the first thing he did was push to get blacks on boards of banks. And that is so powerful. And the people of Indianapolis should be thinking the same thing. What do we look like in corporate America? Are we on these boards? Are we on the boards of these companies? Because a lot of companies right now are screaming Black Lives Matter and writing all these grandiose statements. But when you think of the economic piece of it, racism is still there.
And after talking with you, I mentioned that in an indie chamber, as you know, in an indie chamber meeting just the other day, after a discussion with you, having some conversation with you, you know, talking about why you're a black entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You know, so after talking with you, and I brought that up in that meeting, and we'll be bringing it up in a couple other meetings.
Good.
So that's really
because it's necessary for one of the things I said in an article in the Star a few months back. I look forward to the day where there's a black culture in Indianapolis that lives.
Define a black culture in Indianapolis.
Black culture,
in the thought of Greg Meriweather.
Because I want to be able to go somewhere and say, these are the restaurants that exude us, that show us every day, all night, 24/7. This, if I wanted to say, man, I want to go get a down-home cooked breakfast, I know that I can go to the black area of town where our culture is just living.
Because other major cities have it. Chinese area,
Harlem,
Haitian area,
DC,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And then the other thing is, I don't want to, you know, and this is no diss to these places, but I don't want to always have to go to the Slippery Noodle to hear blues or to the Jazz Kitchen to hear jazz and not see me in the forefront or even running it.
And we don't have to displace whites in order to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it seems that there's a hold on it. There's something that's not happening. There's no trigger.
A fear of it.
A fear of it. And I'm like, why is it that we have to continue to support certain venues in order to get what we want, as opposed to us having the venue? Mm-hmm. You know, and people know this. I'm not going to go to Broad Ripple to hear hip hop. I'm just not, because I'm like, I want it to be where if it's somewhere, put it in the Walker Building. But I'm not going to go to the Vogue per se, because I'm like, no, that I know it's not. I know what hip hop meant to our culture, but now I know what it means to the corporate culture, and I know the money that hip hop is making, and I refuse to be involved in giving money to people that just pretty much utilize our culture like a tool.
Greg, why is this common thought in the black culture?
No.
Why?
Why? Because we have been trained in a way to not see ourselves in leadership.
How'd that happen?
It happened by way of being, I think that there was such a shock during emancipation. Because all of a sudden, the feeling of independence brought fear. And all of a sudden... Amongst us.
Okay.
And all of a sudden...
Are you saying because of how white America responded to
slavery.
it?
Okay. So chattel slavery taught us reliance. You work, I feed you, I do this, I clothe you, and your hut, I own all of this. So all of a sudden, not knowing, you became dependent.
Do you think because there were countries there were black pockets of black culture around the country,
sure,
which started. You know, we hear a lot about Tulsa, but this happened in Chicago,
sure,
where there was a type of black. Let's use that moniker for Black Wall Street,
sure,
in Arkansas, in Rosewood,
yep.
And do you think that the backlash of
even those things being destroyed
frighten people
absolutely
to move forward?
I mean, think about this. We live in a culture to where I grew up being told you can't drive this, you can't wear this, you shouldn't look like this. Don't allow them to see how you look or how you think or your intelligence.
Dress down. I've heard people tell people who work at Fortune 500 companies, black people, that don't wear this because they're gonna think you're So and this is not that long ago.
Not at all. Yeah. And so when you think about it, we're being told to suppress. And this is the other part that really challenges me, Dr. Posley, is the fact that a lot of us are Christians. And I'm like, what in the world would cause you to tell another child of God to be less than what God
to dumb
made
yourself
them to be?
Down, to water yourself down?
Yeah.
With all of what it took to get where you are, whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
And you see it every day. It's almost like we are more afraid of, it's almost like with the talents. We're more afraid of them than respective of him.
Now don't be going here now. That's a good analogy.
And I'm like, why?
Because that's what drove him. Because he had an opportunity to be fantastic. But fear made him buried.
Absolutely.
So then, would it be fair to say that within our culture, getting back to that question, fear also. Yes, the fight against black success is a reality.
Absolutely.
But internal fear of our own success is a reality in terms of reaching out to entrepreneurship and taking advantage of some of the opportunities which are available.
Absolutely.
Fear has so we are internalizing our own our fear and fighting against our own potential success. So it's not just racism. It's some of the offshoots of racism.
Absolutely. Because when you think about it, you're looking, even the support has something to do with that. Because I wrote an article some years ago in the Indianapolis Recorder, I believe it was, it may not have been, but I wrote an article, and it was called "Where Have the Roads Taken Us?" And the focus was how the roads that you picked made you compete against your own brother and sister, and therefore created the individual mindset, because the one who picked the least took the lashes. So all of a sudden, all these people picking these rows of cotton are all these black people who are not helping each other. It's all on the individual. Because then you weigh, see what you got. Whoever had the least took the lashes. So it built a competitive nature in our own people.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden you wonder why we don't help each other. In 12 Years a Slave, if you ever seen that movie, they hung him in the village. No one cut the rope. Yep. Everybody moved as usual because that was his punishment and not ours.
That's right.
And so we have to think holistically about what racism has done to our people, because all of a sudden it's so deep that we don't realize that we don't even work together because of it.
Man, which I don't want to get too far away from our economic topic, but which I believe contributes to even the black on black crime relative to the murder rate.
Sure.
When it manifests the principle you're talking about. When we don't value, and I had this conversation. I was asked a question the other day. Well, how can we be so adamant about
police
chokeholds and abuse of force?
Sure.
I said, listen, these are two separate subjects. Racism is the progenitor of both. But when a black young man kills another black young man, and incidentally, white on white crime is a far greater statistically issue than black on black crime.
Sure.
We don't hear that discussed.
Sure.
But when you see a black man killing a black man, what he is telling you is somewhere in his life he has been trained that life is not valuable.
Absolutely.
Well, racism has taught him that black life, his life is not valuable.
Sure.
Because for a black man to kill another black man is one black man who has two concepts of a devalued existence.
Sure.
Your life doesn't matter to him, and his life doesn't matter to him.
Yeah.
And so that has to be taught. So that doesn't give police officers the right, because we have learned the lesson.
Right.
Racism has taught us the lesson to devalue one another in many
Absolutely.
instances. So that doesn't give you the right, because you've been a good teacher.
That's right.
To perpetuate the problem.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I hate to hear people talking about, well, we don't need to concern ourselves. No, we can multitask.
We can.
We're not stupid.
Right.
We can multitask.
I mean, and it is the hate in the mirror. The hate in the mirror becomes universal. And I think that when we look at young men and as they look at themselves, I think that what we have to understand is the racism that looms in the world today. The thing of saying these young men are going in schools where they're treated differently. They're going in society where they're treated differently. They're hearing no a lot. And then the other thing that what I really stress to blacks in politics, blacks in leadership, blacks in corporate America, is when you do the job of blocking black people who stand up, what are you saying to the youth? What's the message you're saying to a young man that he cannot be a well-groomed, well-spoken, outspoken black man? Because the ones that they see like that, even the black leaders don't want them. And that is because they're beholden to white supremacy.
Say that again. My question is why? Why don't black leaders, in your opinion, want blacks within the corporation that they may lead themselves?
Because they're
to be
beholden
more
to the
vocal?
system. Because what happens is if you get that one who is loud, or not loud, but one who is outspoken, then all of a sudden you're collectively in the issue together. And they don't like that. One of my biggest nemesis in corporate America was never a white male. It was a black man. Because he was like, don't come in here and mess up what I got in here. Being that being Malcolm X. Don't come in here with that black power foolishness. And so they've been always the ones that were like, no, you don't need him.
Yeah. Now, Brother Meriweather, I want you to be careful what you're saying, because you are suggesting that there are times when black people promote their own oppression.
Absolutely. For the greater good of white supremacy.
Wow. That's a major statement.
It is. But it's a
Listen, man, I'm going to have to bring you back. You're going to have to do part 2.
Come on.
Listen, I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, anytime, Pastor.
Listen, this has been a powerful and potent show. It's so much so, I am going to bring this brother back 2 consecutive weeks. We're going to get into this conversation because often we don't have the kind of conversations that go there, and we're so protected because we might step on somebody. But no surgeon can help you who can't cut you. It's as simple as that. I appreciate Brother Greg Meriweather being here today to discuss our part 2 of how racism takes place and relative to economic injustice and depression for black people. Listen, hit share. And be reminded that there's going to be a part 2. We're going to bring him back. He's going to talk about his own business when he comes back. And we're going to get back into this discussion next week. Listen, God bless you. And as always, I want to tell you something. In life, you are constantly making moves. Since you are, why don't you go ahead and make your moves that matter? I'm your host, Dr. Clyde Posley. We're glad to have Mr. Greg Meriweather with us. He will be back next week, and so will I. God bless you, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.